Good evening, YouTube. Apologies for not making a video for a while. I've been a bit distracted, but I noticed I now have a whole 5 subscribers. So thank you to you guys. You are my enablers. You are the excuse that I use to keep buying more knives. It's not just because I just like knives. Obviously, I'm doing it all for the people wanting to buy one. So today I have 2 Real Steels. Really like Real Steel as a company. Their sharpening is usually brilliant from the factory, and all the knives that I've bought so far have been great for the money. And this one probably needs no introduction. It's been very popular. They do a higher end version in metal scales and what have you. This is the £30 Lunar Lite. It comes with a D2 blade. D2's great. I know if you watch a lot of the knife channels, particularly over in the US, D2 now gets described as a budget steel, but actually, until very recently, it was described as a high-end steel. It's a tool steel, great edge retention, perhaps not best for the stain resistance, things like that, but you have to look into the properties of the steel that you want. But as far as edge retention goes, it's a great steel. D2, one of my favourite in the cheaper end of the knives. The scales are G10. This example has brass hardware, brass pivot pin. This doesn't come with it, the thumb stud, but I like to be able to open knives one-handed and close them, excuse me. And this hasn't worn off like I've seen people complain about with the copper version. I've got a feeling this is actually brass, most of this. Got a great clip on this. The reason I decided to buy this knife was as a knife to take with me if I'm wearing something like a shirt for offices or a suit. This will fit nicely in the top pocket. It's very light and look like a pen. You've got very usable D2 blade, as I say, great shape. There's no steel liners in this, which is part of what it makes it so light. I wasn't overly keen on that when I first got it because it sounds a bit hollow. Love the walk and talk, sounds great. One of the best that I own. But actually now that I've had it for a while, and I appreciate that, because if you're going to put it in a shirt pocket, you don't want something that's going to be heavy. I don't think you can go far wrong with the Lunar Lite. Stepping it up a little bit, this is twice the price. It's about 60 quid, and that is the Real Steel G-slip. And on the face of it, they look very similar. This is obviously in jade. G10, it's one of my favourites, probably my favourite of all the G10 colours, but I know it's not for everybody. And you might think, well, why spend twice the price on something that's very similar? I'll show you the differences. The G-slip has nearly a full 3-inch blade, and instead of D2, you get VG10. VG10 is a high-end Japanese steel. It's a very fine steel. It sharpens great, it's lovely to sharpen, and it takes a wicked hair popping edge, probably as good as any of the high-end steels, if not better than most. It's lovely, and particularly with having such thin blade stock, this thing is just like a straight razor. I could shave with this quite easily. I know everyone says it's shaving sharp. This takes a wicked edge, but it's the attention to details on the G-slip, which is why I think it's worth the money. You've got the full 3 inches, which we're allowed in this country, but on that you've got lovely crowned spine to the back of the blade, and if you look closely you can see the blade shape comes out, goes in towards the tip, and then comes back out for extra thickness. That kind of attention to detail, the way that it locks up between the blade and the back spring's perfect. The back spring itself is all crowned, and then if you look further you can see through the handle. This one does have steel liners, but it doesn't just have steel liners. They are nested into the G10 and then milled out. It's that kind of attention to detail which keeps it very light. Apologies about the focus, which I think makes it worth the extra money. On this one you have a wire clip instead of the usual folded clip, which I am a big fan of. It's a bit like the Spydercos. You get great retention, doesn't destroy your pockets, and it's pretty unassuming. Again, this is a light knife. It's the maximum kind of blade length that we are allowed. And you might look at it and go, well, the blade stock is quite thin. But what, mostly in this country, we're using our knives for EDC. They're generally light use. We're not in the woods splitting wood with them. We're opening packages, breaking down cardboard, whatever. It's the day-to-day small tasks. And this is a fantastic option for the money. For 60 quid, I think it's one of the better ones that I bought. Much prefer this to the Fox Libar that I got recently, which was a bit more expensive than that. Even though it's M390, I still think this is better. I think both of these are a great option depending on your price point. But my favourite of the two, I think, has to be the G-Slip. I know this one has much more of a following at the moment, but I think this is a great option. This I use if I'm going to wear a suit somewhere, because it looks classy, it looks like a pen in the pocket. This one, because it's so light and unassuming, if I'm wearing shorts through the summer or running shorts or whatever it is, or you don't want something heavy weighing you down, this is a great option. In terms of blade length, I've got the full 3 inches on the G-Slip. The Lunar, this focus, it's terrible. The Lunar handle length is very similar. You have a slightly shorter blade. See, in comparison to one that I got recently and then quickly ruined was the Fox Libar. I tried to sharpen it on my workshop tabletop thing. If you have a look at that grind, it's horrible. It's way too high. It is now very sharp, which it wasn't when I bought. And I just use it as my day-to-day, work knife. I feel it's kind of ruined it now. And that was 70 quid. And that has no steel liners. It feels more in line with the Lunar, to be honest. It's not as big as the Lunar, neither's the blade. But with being linerless, it just feels a bit cheaper to me. I'm probably upsetting loads of people who own the Libar, but given the money, save yourself a tenner and get the G-Slip. I think this is a fantastic knife. People say you can't open it one-handed. You definitely can if you get a thumb stud, but both of these didn't come with thumb studs. They were added as an aftermarket. If anyone can tell me how I ruined the grind on that, maybe it's the M390. It takes more sharpening. It takes much longer to do, and that's a backwards and forwards motion on the workshop, and it just created a much higher grind, which I don't like. I mean, it is razor sharp now, but I'm a little bit worried about doing any of the other knives until I know what the cause of that was. Perhaps the stones got a bit blunt. I could do with buying a new one of those rotary stones for the workshop. But I certainly won't be doing any more of my M390 blades until I know what caused that. I thought this, being an Italian knife, was going to be more similar to something like the Viper Key, probably the classiest of the slip joints that I own, but it didn't really stack up for me. But each to their own. Anyway, this video is about the real steels, both fantastic options. If you only got 30 quid to spend on a knife, I don't think you'll go far wrong with the Lunar. If you're able to spend a little bit more, I would get the G-Slip. That's my favourite. That VG10 is quickly becoming one of my favourite steels. Love it. Very fine edge, easy to sharpen, and gets all the jobs done. Hope this is of use to somebody. Thanks again to my new subscribers. If anyone else finds this video useful, please like and subscribe and give me another excuse to buy more knives. Ta-ta.